Lady Yardley, aptly ministered to by Poirot, who is as good as a woman in these matters, was sufficiently recovered to be able to tell her story. I was just going to turn on the other light, she said, when a man sprang on me from behind. He tore my necklace from my neck with such force that I fell headlong to the floor. As I fell, I saw him disappearing through the side door. Then I realized by the pigtail and the embroidered robe that he was a Chinaman. She stopped with a shudder. The butler reappeared. He spoke in a low voice to Lord Yardley. "A gentleman from Mr. Hofburg's, my lord. He says you expect him." "Good heavens," cried the distracted nobleman. "I must see him, I suppose." "No, not here, Mullings, in the library." I drew Poirot aside. "Look here, my dear fellow, hadn't we better get back to London?" "You think so, Hastings? Why?" "Well," I coughed delicately, "things haven't gone very well, have they? I mean, you tell Lord Yardley to place himself in your hands and all will be well, and then the diamond vanishes from under your very nose." "True," said Poirot, rather crestfallen. It was not one of my most striking triumphs. This way of describing events almost caused me to smile, but I stuck to my guns. "So, having, pardon the expression, rather made a mess of things, don't you think it would be more graceful to leave immediately? And the dinner, the without doubt excellent dinner, that the chef of Lord Yardley has prepared?" "Oh, what's dinner?" I said impatiently. Poirot held up his hands in horror. "Mon Dieu! It is that in this country you treat the affairs gastronomic with a criminal indifference. There's another reason why we should get back to London as soon as possible," I continued. "What is that, my friend?" "The other diamond," I said, lowering my voice. "Miss Marvel's." "Eh bien, what of it?" "Don't you see?" His unusual obtuseness annoyed me. What had happened to his usually keen wits? "They've got one, now they'll go for the other." "Tiens," cried Poirot, stepping back a pace and regarding me with admiration. "But your brain marches to a marvel, my friend. Figure to yourself that for the moment I had not thought of that. But there is plenty of time. The full of the moon, it is not until Friday." I shook my head dubiously. The full of the moon theory left me entirely cold. I had my way with Poirot, however, and we departed immediately, leaving behind us a note of explanation and apology for Lord Yardley. My idea was to go at once to the Magnificent, and relate to Miss Marvel what had occurred, but Poirot vetoed the plan, and insisted that the morning would be time enough. I gave in rather grudgingly. In the morning Poirot seemed strangely disinclined to stir out. I began to suspect that, having made a mistake to start with, he was singularly loath to proceed with the case. In answer to my persuasions, he pointed out, with admirable common sense, that as the details of the affair at Yardley Chase were already in the morning papers, the Rolfs would know quite as much as we could tell them. I gave way unwillingly. Events proved my forebodings to be justified. About 2 o'clock, the telephone rang. Poirot answered it. He listened for some moments, then with a brief bien, je serai he rang off, and turned to me. "What do you think, mon ami?" He looked half ashamed, half excited. "The diamond of Miss Marvel, it has been stolen." "What?" I cried, springing up. "And what about the full of the moon now?" Poirot hung his head. "When did this happen?" "This morning, I understand." I shook my head sadly. "If only you had listened to me. You see I was right." "It appears so, mon ami," said Poirot cautiously. "Appearances are deceptive, they say, but it certainly appears so." As we hurried in a taxi to the Magnificent, I puzzled out the true inwardness of the scheme. That full of the moon idea was clever. The whole point of it was to get us to concentrate on the Friday, and so be off our guard beforehand. It is a pity you did not realize that. "Ma foi," said Poirot airily, his nonchalance quite restored after its brief eclipse. "One cannot think of everything." I felt sorry for him. He did so hate failure of any kind. "Cheer up," I said consolingly. "Better luck next time." At the Magnificent, we were ushered at once into the manager's office. Gregory Rolfe was there with 2 men from Scotland Yard. A pale-faced clerk sat opposite them. Rolfe nodded to us as we entered. "We're getting to the bottom of it," he said. "But it's almost unbelievable. How the guy had the nerve I can't think." A very few minutes sufficed to give us the facts. Mr. Rolfe had gone out of the hotel at 11:15. At 11:30, a gentleman, so like him in appearance as to pass muster, entered the hotel and demanded the jewel case from the safe deposit. He duly signed the receipt, remarking carelessly as he did so, Looks a bit different from my ordinary one, but I hurt my hand getting out of the taxi. The clerk merely smiled and remarked that he saw very little difference. Rolf laughed and said, "Well, don't run me in as a crook this time, anyway. I've been getting threatening letters from a Chinaman, and the worst of it is I look rather like a chink myself. It's something about the eyes." I looked at him, said the clerk who was telling us this, and I saw at once what he meant. The eyes slanted up at the corners like an Oriental's. I'd never noticed it before. "Darn it all, man," roared Gregory Rolfe, leaning forward, "do you notice it now?" The man looked up at him and started. "No, sir," he said. "I can't say I do." And indeed there was nothing even remotely Oriental about the frank brown eyes that looked into ours. The Scotland Yard man grunted. "Bold customer. Thought the eyes might be noticed, and took the bull by the horns to disarm suspicion. He must have watched you out of the hotel, sir, and nipped in as soon as you were well away." "What about the jewel case?" I asked. "It was found in a corridor of the hotel. Only one thing had been taken, the Western Star." We stared at each other. The whole thing was so bizarre, so unreal. Poirot hopped briskly to his feet. "I have not been of much use, I fear," he said regretfully. "Is it permitted to see madam?" "I guess she's prostrated with a shock," explained Rolfe. "Then perhaps I might have a few words alone with you, monsieur?" "Certainly." In about 5 minutes Poirot reappeared. "Now, my friend," he said gaily. "To a post office. I have to send a telegram." "Who to?" "Lord Yardley." He discounted further inquiries by slipping his arm through mine. Come, mon ami. I know all that you feel about this miserable business. I have not distinguished myself. You, in my place, might have distinguished yourself. Bien. All is admitted. Let us forget it and have lunch." It was about 4 o'clock when we entered Poirot's rooms. A figure rose from a chair by the window. It was Lord Yardley. He looked haggard and distraught. "I got your wire and came up at once. Look here, I've been round to Hofburg, and they know nothing about that man of theirs last night, or the wire either. Do you think that?" Poirot held up his hand. "My excuses. I sent that wire, and hired the gentleman in question." But why? What?" The nobleman spluttered impotently. "My little idea was to bring things to a head," explained Poirot placidly. "Bring things to a head. Oh, my God," cried Lord Yardley. "And the ruse succeeded," said Poirot cheerfully. "Therefore, milord, I have much pleasure in returning you this." With a dramatic gesture he produced a glittering object. It was a great diamond. "The Star of the East," gasped Lord Yardley. "But I don't understand." "No?" said Poirot. "It makes no matter. Believe me, it was necessary for the diamond to be stolen. I promised you that it should be preserved to you, and I have kept my word. You must permit me to keep my little secret. Convey, I beg of you, the assurances of my deepest respect to Lady Yardley, and tell her how pleased I am to be able to restore her jewel to her. What beau temps, is it not? Good day, milord." And smiling and talking, the amazing little man conducted the bewildered nobleman to the door. He returned gently rubbing his hands. "Poirot," I said. "Am I quite demented?" "No, mon ami, but you are, as always, in a mental fog. How did you get the diamond?" "From Mr. Rolfe." "Rolfe? Mais oui. The warning letters, the Chinaman, the article in Society Gossip, all sprang from the ingenious brain of Mr. Rolfe. The two diamonds, supposed to be so miraculously alike, bah! They did not exist. There was only one diamond, my friend. Originally in the Yardley collection, for 3 years it has been in the possession of Mr. Rolfe. He stole it this morning with the assistance of a touch of grease paint at the corner of each eye. Ah, I must see him on the film, he is indeed an artist, celui-là. But why should he steal his own diamond?" I asked, puzzled. "For many reasons. To begin with, Lady Yardley was getting restive." "Lady Yardley?" "You comprehend she was left much alone in California. Her husband was amusing himself elsewhere. Mr. Rolfe was handsome, he had an air about him of romance. But au fond, he is very businesslike, c'est monsieur. He made love to Lady Yardley, and then he blackmailed her. I taxed the lady with the truth the other night, and she admitted it. She swore that she had only been indiscreet, and I believe her. But, undoubtedly, Rolfe had letters of hers that could be twisted to bear a different interpretation. Terrified by the threat of a divorce, and the prospect of being separated from her children, she agreed to all he wished. She had no money of her own, and she was forced to permit him to substitute a paste replica for the real stone. The coincidence of the date of the appearance of the Western Star struck me at once. All goes well. Lord Yardley prepares to range himself, to settle down. And then comes the menace of the possible sale of the diamond. The substitution will be discovered. Without doubt she writes off frantically to Gregory Rolfe, who has just arrived in England. He soothes her by promising to arrange all, and prepares for a double robbery. In this way he will quiet the lady, who might conceivably tell all to her husband, an affair which would not suit our blackmailer at all. He will have £50,000 insurance money, aha, you had forgotten that, and he will still have the diamond. At this point I put my finger in the pie. The arrival of a diamond expert is announced. Lady Yardley, as I felt sure she would, immediately arranges a robbery, and does it very well too. But Hercule Poirot, he sees nothing but facts. What happens in actuality? The lady switches off the light, bangs the door, throws the necklace down the passage, and screams. She has already wrenched out the diamond with pliers upstairs. But we saw the necklace round her neck. I objected. I demand pardon, my friend. Her hand concealed the part of it where the gap would have shown. To place a piece of silk in the door beforehand is child's play. Of course, as soon as Rolfe read of the robbery, he arranged his own little comedy. And very well he played it. What did you say to him? I asked with lively curiosity. I said to him that Lady Yardley had told her husband all, that I was empowered to recover the jewel, and that if it were not immediately handed over proceedings would be taken. Also a few more little lies which occurred to me. He was as wax in my hands. I pondered the matter. It seems a little unfair on Mary Marvel. She has lost her diamond through no fault of her own. Bah, said Poirot brutally. She has a magnificent advertisement. That is all she cares for, that one. Now the other, she is different. Bon mara, très femme. Yes, I said doubtfully, hardly sharing Poirot's views on femininity. I suppose it was Rolfe who sent her the duplicate letters. Pas du tout, said Poirot briskly. She came by the advice of Mary Cavendish to seek my aid in her dilemma. Then she heard that Mary Marvel, whom she knew to be her enemy, had been here, and she changed her mind, jumping at a pretext that you, my friend, offered her. A very few questions sufficed to show me that you told her of the letters, not she you. She jumped at the chance your words offered. I don't believe it, I cried, stung. See, mon ami, it is a pity that you study not the psychology. She told you that the letters were destroyed? Oh, la, never does a woman destroy a letter if she can avoid it. Not even if it would be more prudent to do so. It's all very well, I said, my anger rising, but you've made a perfect fool of me. From beginning to end. No, it's all very well to try and explain it away afterwards. There really is a limit. But you were so enjoying yourself, my friend. I had not the heart to shatter your illusions. It's no good. You've gone a bit too far this time. Mon Dieu. But how you enrage yourself for nothing, mon ami. I'm fed up. I went out, banging the door. Poirot had made an absolute laughingstock of me. I decided that he needed a sharp lesson. I would let some time elapse before I forgave him. He had encouraged me to make a perfect fool of myself.